Hey guys, Max here. Now, this video I think is a must, simply because I spent weeks doing research before buying this specific iPad. I read countless of forums, posts. I rewatched several videos several times. I even paused on specific parts of the videos just to see what I was looking for. Unfortunately, there's very little information out there that I was trying to find out. Now, here I have both of them are iPad Pro 11-inch with M4 chip. The difference is this is standard display, and here I have Nano texture display. And this is what I was trying to find out. How good is Nano texture display for reading? Most of us already know how standard displays are for reading, whether it's LCD or an OLED. When you get shiny display, you get discomfort. Also, the way the light is emitting, you can't really sit and read there for long periods because it's uncomfortable. Hence why e-ink dedicated devices are still popular. And this is a little bit off topic. You have Kindles, you have Kobo, you have just dedicated devices only that are designed for reading, and some are also designed for reading and writing. But then you have, like, for example, Books Palm right here, and I have other Books devices that have Android on it and able to do a lot more than just reading and writing. The problem with those devices is risk of attack, meaning they come with old version of Androids. They also come with very old security patches, and that leaves user vulnerable to exposure to attackers just because the security is not up to the date. Especially if you're using your main, for example, Google account to log in, which a smart attacker will be able to get in and get all your passwords. So hence why I kind of always steered myself into getting latest devices, whether it's Android and iPad, so that I could have more of a secure usage and at the same time more up-to-date applications. Because when you're dealing with old version of Android, some applications become incompatible. So, but the problem is, before having nano textures, it's mostly standard display. And this is even going back before, like, for example, TCL released their next paper device, which kind of comes with matte display. But the negative of that display is I did not like that it had LCD panel. There was light issue with bleeding. The text didn't look so crisp. I just did not like device. The price is amazing. I also found it to be slow. But again, it used an LCD panel and it wasn't pleasing. After short periods of reading, I found my eyes to be uncomfortable, tired, fatigued. So I steered clear from that device. Like, I returned it. So I generally went for something that's more expensive, that's designed to be much more snappier, faster, with a better display. The problem is now I'm dealing with uncomfortable experience when it comes to reading. Because when using, for example, here, let me open a book here. Now you have to deal with reflection. There's also light, or you would have to like lower display in order to be able to read. But then any slight reflection will become very annoying. Then you kind of forced to increase the brightness, but then you have this discomfort from looking at light for a long period. Definitely not something that's comfortable before bed, because when your eyes are exposed to light, now the melatonin production is affected. So generally what I ended up usually using is trying to find a matte or anti-glare protection, a screen protector, whether it's plastic film or it's tempered glass. And I've tried so many over the years. So if you're watching any other video that says you don't really need this, you could just get this and slap a screen protector on it, absolutely not. The experience is not in day. Reason being, Imagine this display right here, and it's emitting light that's designed for you to see true color images. Now you're applying this extra layer on top of it. So now some of this light that's being emitted from display is being kind of diffused or kind of blocked. So now you're getting this blacks that aren't true black. Now they're looking cloudy type of grayish black. The colors are looking more muted. You start seeing this pixelated, almost like experience where you look at it and you could see the small dots that are from the screen protector. Or if you're looking at something that's completely white background, now that white is no longer white. Now it's looking cloudy, grayish, yellowish type of whatever the screen protector image coloring that's on it. Whether it's pure clear, you start seeing still those pixelated. Any screen protector that I've tried over the years on a standard display was a complete disappointment. It just downgraded image so much. There was one that I used, and I was able to get away with reading almost an hour. But the next day, my eyes were so tired. I can't even imagine people that are working with computers all day and then coming home and using a device that's causing their eyes to get even more tired. Hence why devices such as these that are using e-ink displays are still popular, because they eliminate the discomfort, like for example that standard display does, because you're just reading the screen, fonts, text that look like they are on paper, versus here this does not look like the paper. So hence why I was doing research on the nano texture display to see how is reading on the nano texture display. Very, very little information available out there. Very little. And funny thing is, I watched so many videos, and whenever they showed a little form of text on the display, I would pause that video and try to see if there's a difference, if this is the device that will finally deliver what I've been looking for years. A device that is up to the date with OS, with the latest applications, and at the same time, I am able to see amazing true colors, stream movies, just basically get the full usage of that device. Is this the device? Unfortunately, very, very, very little information available out there. There were only few posts that I saw, and they weren't even dedicated for reading. It's just I saw some people would ask a question like, oh, how's reading on this device? And it would be briefly response, oh, nano texture is the best for reading. That's it. But most of us, I'm sure you heard this saying, a picture speaks for 1,000 words. Very little visual presentation out there. How is it for reading? So after failed research, I decided to buy it. And I've been using this device for some time now, and I've used it for reading. I've watched movies on it, I've shopped, I basically did everything that I would do on this. The only difference that now I'm able to do with this is reading. And it is. The fact is, reading on this is much more comfortable. And I'm not even gonna give the benefit the fact that, like right now I have the light, and you can see the light here, that the reflection of the light is not noticeable. You can see like a little glow, but it is night and day when it comes to comparing to something like this. Now this is distracting any reader from the text, because you have now reflection in the way of trying to read something, versus here you don't have that issue. But what nanotexture also I've noticed does, it kind of softens things. Now the truth is, you get true deep blacks, beautiful colors on the standard display. The difference is very, very, very minimal. You start notice downgrade of an image if you start looking, let's say if I'm watching a movie or if I'm looking at an image of some sort, if I start looking a little bit from an angle, the image becomes less than what it would be like if I'm looking directly at it. The difference between the standard, it could be completely at 90 degree and the image still looks beautiful. Here, because there's that extra layer of nano texture, it becomes a little bit downgraded. But when you're looking directly at it, which if I'm reading, I'm holding it straight at me. If I'm watching a movie, I'm holding it straight at me. So the quality of an image when looking directly at it, maybe 1% less than what it is on the standard display. Literally 1% or even slightly less. So the difference between the quality of display, it's very minimal. The only difference is if you're looking at an angle, you definitely start noticing a difference. Now, the blacks are black on both. Let me show it to you. Let me go into black. Here we go. They're both black. So I don't know why some reviewers saying like, oh, because of this layer now the black looks gray. No, if you're looking directly at it, it's pretty much almost in sync with the borders of the bezels. Same difference here. The blacks are black. The whites are white. So the difference in the color and the light and all that is probably, to my opinion, is less than 1%. You do start noticing again the difference once you start looking at an angle. Now you start seeing more of a grayish type of background rather than looking directly at it where black looks black. That's the biggest difference. Let me put them side by side. So as you could see, they both look black, the whites look white. But for reading, if I had to pick one device, let me pick both of them. I would definitely, without a doubt, go for the nano textured iPad Pro. Reading on this is so much more comfortable. It's not as uncomfortable as looking at glaring type of display, and at the same time there's no filter on top of it that's kind of softening the light that my eyes are looking at. So I definitely get more fatigued from reading on the standard display versus using a nano texture display. So reading on this is a lot more comfortable. Is it the same as reading on the e-ink display? Absolutely not. Um, you can make it close where, look at this, it looks, let me actually make it the white background. Where this, if like, I don't know if you guys see it on your end, obviously you probably see those lines that I don't see, it's just the camera picking those up. But this to me, because of that extra nano texture layer, looks like a paper. Not anywhere close to what e-ink does. But then even with the e-ink, you kind of require to use lighting if you're reading in a dark room. So there's a downgrade in the image quality in that itself too. So here, this looks amazing versus like, for example, here, let me bring it to 1, light, where this becomes more uncomfortable. Let me lower the brightness. Can I read it like this? Yes, but if a little bit any light, it becomes more uncomfortable. And then if I'm looking at this display in a complete darkness, then my eyes are going to be even more fatigued because now my eyes are forced to look at a display that's constantly emitting light versus here where it feels like there's a layer that softens that light. Is there a downgrade in the image? Again, only if I'm looking from an angle where I see a slight downgrade in image. Both of these displays deliver such an amazing experience. I notice with nano texture where things look a little bit softer, but it looks great all around. For reading purpose, and this is the sole purpose of making this video, I would not use standard display for reading. I would use this for reading. Generally, I would like to use a darker background and just read like this. Look at this. You could read pointing at the light. That's fine. Even if, let's say, if you're sitting at the harsh light on top of it, you could still see screen versus something like this where it completely blocks off whatever you're reading because the display itself is more reflective on standard. But here, this is the one to go for reading. Of course, if you have the money to shell out for it, because I think it's an overkill to get a display that's worth a reading, but it costs hundreds of dollars more. Like you have to upgrade to 1 terabyte version of iPad Pro 11 or 13. Then you have to add an additional $100 for the nano texture layer just to be able to read books. So this is definitely an investment. But Apple generally does update their devices, even the older devices. So you could get away using something like this for years versus something like this, which probably in 2 years would be obsolete and completely probably would not get any updates. And this is like throwing my private information out there, just begging for someone to steal it. So this, if you break it down over the years of usage, then maybe it makes more sense. But if you're like me, who likes to upgrade devices every single year, then this would be in a very expensive type of device that you would have to upgrade. And then at the end of the day, I doubt Apple is going to give the trade value for this that's going to be a lot more different than this. So it's definitely a big, trade-off as far as the cost. This is the only negative to this device. I'm going to repeat myself again. The only biggest negative to iPad Pro 11-inch with M4 or even the 13-inch is the cost. This is a big, big choice that someone must make in order to buy this versus something like this. This is 256 gigabytes, 1 terabyte. There's already a huge price difference in between both just because of the storage. Then on top of it is $100 for the nano layer. Do I need this storage? Absolutely not. Let me show you how much I'm using right now. Let's see right here. Let me screenshot it so I don't have to share any of my personal information. Okay. Let's see right here. And this is also cellular, so that's an additional cost. So 1 terabyte, and that's how much is available. 935 gigabytes out of 1 terabyte. We are so adapted to using cloud storage nowadays that having that 1 terabyte for my usage is a complete waste of money. Hundreds of dollars waste of money. But I want a device that delivers on everything, and sadly to say, this for me delivers on pretty much everything. I could stream movies on it comfortably. I could shop on it without feeling, shop for hours, without feeling the fatigue from the reflection of a display or having that light reflection into my eyes. Because again, nano textures has that extra layering on top that kind of makes softens the light, so it's not as uncomfortable. It's very difficult to explain, and I would say go to the Apple Store and see the difference, but it's not the same experience as you would when you bring the device home. That's the truth, because I did go to the Apple store and I try to see the difference, and it's not the same experience that you bring the device home and you really actually start using it for yourself to see how much of a difference it is to use this type of panel versus something like this. Because at the Apple store, you have lighting on the ceiling, there's other environmental lighting, so it's not the same experience as you would when you do it at home, when you could tailor that experience more to your own liking. But again, this is a very expensive device, which kind of makes me upset and angry at Apple because they should have given us option of 256. Okay, maybe 256 is too little for Apple. Like at least 512. 512 makes more sense, and then add that $100 extra to get nano texture. For me, 1 terabyte is a total waste of money. But it is comfortable for reading, which is what I was looking for. Even if I put this kind of background, you could do things on it. Like even this kind of background, like look at this. It's so much more comfortable, and the light doesn't become an issue as much as it is here. So for reading, yes, this is the one to go for, especially if you're going to college. Like for me, for example, I'm a huge fan of using PDF version books, EPUB, whatever it is that's designed for electronic books. I'm a huge fan. I believe in saving trees if that's still a thing for a lot of people. Why buy books when I could just easily carry one device, eliminate all the extra weight from needing to carry books, and have that electronic version of device that allows me to read? And this is what I did when I was going through college, and I spent about 19 years in college, and majority of the last, I would say, 9 years, I've tried to use solely um, tablets or an iPad for reading books that I needed for school. And those were generally not as comfortable because I had to deal with all this reflection, especially like I'm a fan of studying in the dark without eliminating all this extra unnecessary light. So having something like this is a lot more comfortable. Even though this, you might say that, well, in the dark, you're not really dealing with a lot of reflection. But in the dark, that means you're dealing with a lot more light reflecting into your eyes. And then if you start lowering the brightness, then you're going to start feeling sleepy. And this is from the experience. But something like this, I could sit in a light and I could read. And then again, like over here, um, I can highlight, and oh my gosh, using Apple Pencil for schooling and the iPad, like hands down. I've tried using computers, I've tried using Android, even though Android is my favorite, but I've tried using Android like Samsung with their pencils that they come for free for schooling. It is not the same experience as using an iPad and Apple Pencil Pro. For school, if any of college student or anyone that goes to school, and if they ask me which is the best device to use for school, iPad with Apple Pencil, hands down. It made my life so much easier. And I used books application. Actually, I would load PDF file or whatever the book format it was into an iPad, and you could literally on the books application, you could edit it on this, you could write on this specific, and it would save whatever you read, whatever you wrote on this specific format, and it syncs amongst all your devices. It is night and day when it comes to going to school and using an iPad for schooling. But now that this is also very comfortable for reading, like if you're studying, especially if you're going for your grads, a master's, PhD, whatever, and those require a lot of reading. This is hands down the only investment that anyone should make for schooling. This is the way to go. Like when I will go back to school because I plan on continuing even further. This will be the device that I'll be using. This is comfortable. I see myself reading for hours without having any issues or fatigue when it comes to using something like this. At the same time, having to use an Apple Pencil Pro or whatever the Apple Pencil um, on this type of device is a lot more comfortable than using it on very slippery device. Okay, I think I rambled enough. Like you see, it popped up right over here. They sync so quick. This is like amazing. Not an Apple fanboy, but Apple is doing a lot of things right when it comes to using their products. I think I've said enough. If you have any questions, let me just show you briefly how it is like to read news article on this. Let me get rid of this. Sure, let me share. Look at this. You could literally read any article. Let me open this. And you could see, like again, when looking directly at it, it looks good. As soon as you start looking to the side, you start seeing slight decrease in the quality of an image. Let's see this one. I mean, look at this. You could read like this. That's not a problem. Like for reading, for Apple Pencil use, this is the device to go. Unfortunately, as expensive as it is, this is just hands down is such a pleasure to use for reading versus, let's say if I open, let's get out of here. Let's just open the same article. Well, let's not use that article. Let's say eating this carb. Yes, okay, let's do this one. Here we go. I am not subscribed. So you could see how much more comfortable it is to read on this versus it is here. So this video is intended for reading purposes. This. Absolutely. With the Nano texture display, iPad Pro is the way to go for reading. And it's also the fact that because it's 11-inch, it's also light. Let me put this to the side. It's also light to hold. I mean, look at this. This is such a pleasure to use. Look at this. It's so beautiful. Like, let me see if we're going to get to the same. Probably not. I'm hoping. Nope. Anywhere? Absolutely? No. Okay. So overall, you get to deal with glare, you get to deal with light emission versus this where it's more comfortable to use. I mean, I get excited using this. Honestly, I do. It's too expensive. That's the only biggest negative to this is the price. Reading on something that costs over $2,000 it's ridiculous. Honestly, it's ridiculous. I don't think I would recommend it just because the cost is a lot, unless you're really going to be using it for college, for work, and if you're doing artistry, graphic designer. But for reading alone, I think this is just a lot of money. If you can't afford it, I definitely do recommend it. But nowadays, with the economy that we're all dealing with, smart decision not to buy this just because it's over $2,000. And at this point, you could just buy an e-ink display device every year, and I think it would be cheaper than having to deal with this, unless you plan to buy this and use it for a long term. But I don't know how it's going to be long term, just because the care is already um, specific by Apple. So I don't know what the longevity of this display is, especially if you plan to really take advantage of this display. Just before I go, I want to show that it does attract fingers. There you go. And some videos say it's easy to get rid of them. Absolutely not. Look at this. You really, really have to rub it. It's still there. Like you really, really, really have to rub it. Go this side, that side, this side, that side, that side, in order to get rid of those smudges. So it is, I think, they're both fingerprint magnets. The only difference is having something like this. I could use the same cloth. It takes the smudges a lot quicker than it does over here where you really have to rub it off. Okay, thanks for listening to my rambling. Hopefully this video helped. I think it was needed. It was a must just because for me, who's a reader, I just couldn't find an answer if this was with the nano texture display, if this was a device, if this device is great for reading. And absolutely it is. Okay? If you have any questions, comments, please post below. Thanks for watching.